Now, before anybody says anything about Thursday night, I knew it, I called it, I saw it, I laughed at it, and I had Jamar Chase on my fantasy team. So all is well in the world. Let's go, Joe Flacco. Love you, good sir. We are back. It is Saturday. It is time for another BS and a beer. And I teased an interesting manuscript, and I'll bet you the thumbnail, well, most of my thumbnails probably confuse you, but this one in particular, one in reference to said document. But we will get to that in a moment. We are going to, we'll see. I've never actually tried to age one of these before, but it is something I've had for a while, 2019 to be precise. We are going a different country, a different style. This is German. This is Abraxxxas from Freigeist Bierkultur. It is a smoked beer, Lichtenheiner Weiss. I don't know, Lichtenheiner might be an area, but Weiss is wheat beer. It is 6%, and it is a smoked beer. And essentially, if I can get this open, all right, let's see if it even works. Let's see. All right. We should be good. Oh, yeah, we should be good. Now, smoked beers, essentially, it's as it sounds. They take the malts, and they smoke them as you would smoke, some sort of pork product or any sort of meat, and it gives it that distinct, for German and American style beers, it gives them a very distinct, like almost barbecue meaty flavor. But it's the same principle behind the really smoky, peaty scotches. They take the malt and they smoke it over the peat moss. But this should be good, so we're gonna flip around and we're gonna talk something weird. Hello, we're back over here now. Now, we have the beer, very lightly smoked, but you know what? Not bad at all. Still has a little minor smoke, little sweetness. No carbonation at all. Yeah, a lot of the flavor, unfortunately, has disappeared, but still has a little bit of that smoked flavor, which I kind of liked. I would say smoked beers don't take well to age. It's not bad. It's not rancid by any stretch of the imagination. But, it's just kind of like smoky, slightly sweet water. But either way, 6% alcohol, and it gives us a little platform to talk about some really interesting stuff. Now, as you can see from the thumbnail, the title of this is called the Voynich Manuscript. You ever hear of it? Probably not. I don't blame you. Not many people have. The Voynich Manuscript in the thumbnail is actually a picture of said manuscript. We're going to get to that in a minute because I also teased something else last week. The Voynich Manuscript is an illustrated, handwritten codex. And for those of you that don't know what a codex is, essentially it is a series of manuscripts in the pre-book times, but it's a series of manuscripts that have been assembled into something akin to a book. It may not be a book as we would call a book, with like linear thoughts and everything, but it's simply a compilation of things. They do know how old this thing is within about 30 years. The vellum that it's on, again, vellum is the term for a tanned animal hide. In this case, they did determine it was calf skin. I think they said about 14 or 15 calf skins were used for this document. It has been carbon dated to the early 15th century, somewhere between 1404 and 1438. So essentially, you're looking at an over 600-year-old document. Here's the kicker. Nobody knows what it is. You know why nobody knows what it is? Because the Voynich manuscript is written in, as best they can describe it, it's an incomprehensible language. If it even is a language. It is an unreadable code, and nobody has figured it out. Nobody. This thing's been around for over 600 years. Nobody knows who wrote it, what it means, why it was written, why it was compiled. But they do know for a fact of its age. The fact that the parchment, the vellum that it's on, dates back to the early 1400s. But again, nobody knows who wrote it. They have theories. Obviously, there's theories. And this is why I absolutely love history because this is one of those things you want the answer to. We demand to know the answer to. We're never going to see the answer in our lifetime. In fact, for the remainder of the existence of the human species on this rotating blue marble in the universe, we may never know the answer. I mean, they've speculated. They've speculated wildly, and there's some good ones, but nobody has been able to even come close to figuring out how, anything even remotely accurate to it. There's great theories. They think it's a work of reference, some sort of index or almost almanac, as you will. Some people speculate that it could be a work of fiction. Some people think it could have just been a 600-year-old practical joke. But nobody knows. And before I get too far, I do want to say this is going to be a very brief and very rudimentary overview of this subject. I put a link in the description to a video by a channel called The Histocrat. Really like that channel. They do a lot of cool, weird history stuff. I linked to the video they did about the Voynich manuscript. In case you want to watch it, I've watched it numerous times. It is incredibly fascinating. And when I asked a friend of mine, I said I needed something that I could talk about for 15, 20 minutes. She sent me the YouTube link for the video from The Histocrat. And it's like, well, that's good because I do like that channel. So a link to that will be down below if you want to check it out, because this is just really interesting. And now, back to the subject at hand. But first, a sip of the beer. I got distracted. I've done this in bars with beers like this. Like, I've gotten so wrapped up in talking about something, completely forgotten about the beer. It kind of happens. Be with you in a moment. So now, we have the existence of this document. We have absolutely no translation of this document. They've figured out essentially some of the letters. They don't know if they're letters. They assume they're letters kind of based on the structure of the text. The one thing that is said, and is very weird, is there is absolutely no form of any punctuation that anybody has seen. But there are a lot of repeating patterns and, some things that lead them to believe that the characters are letters. However, now let's talk about what this thing is and where it came from and where it is now, because it is still in existence and it is still housed and it is available online, and I'll link to that as well. So, as it was created in the early 15th century, the early history, nobody knows. The first confirmed owner, and this is why I love history, was a 17th century alchemist from Prague by the name of George Berish. He ended up with this document somehow. This is I put the timeline of owners that they know. There is speculation on the first couple of owners, but there is that big gap right from 1400 on. But this guy, George Berish, was the absolute first one that they could confirm had ownership of the Voynich manuscript. Now, where did the name Voynich come from? Well, very simple. It was named after a man by the name of Wilfred Voynich, who was a Polish book dealer who ended up purchasing the manuscript in 1912. Fun little bonus fact about him. His wife went by the name of Ethel Lillian Voynich, but her married name was Boole, and she was an author of the book The Gadfly. I just think that's an interesting little fun factoid. So what they know about the manuscript. It is approximately 240 pages, but they do have evidence that there are some pages that are missing. Torn out, worn out, they don't know, but is evidence that a good amount of pages are missing. And here's where they break it down and why they can start to tell. The text is written left to right, some pages on foldable sheets of varying sizes. I didn't dig too much into the digitized version of it yet, because I wanted to save it for just monkeying around with you guys for about 5 minutes after this. It's, let's see, written left to right. Most of the pages, and this is actually kind of an interesting thing we'll cover in a minute, have very, very weird, fantastical illustrations and diagrams. Some are very crudely colored, but others are rather well colored. You'll see the cover photo of some very vibrant colors. And there are some sections that show people, unidentified plants, and even astrological symbols. It's bounced around, but after it was discovered, or after he purchased it, and I think it was discovered when his wife passed in, I think 1950 or so, somewhere around there. She died 30 years after he did, I believe. Since 1969, Yale University has been in possession of the book at its Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library. And here's the kicker, and what we're going to be looking at in, I don't know, probably about 10 minutes or so. Since 2020, they have digitized it and made it available for the public to look at through the Voynich Rare Book Library. Link to that will be down below, and we're going to check it out on my laptop in a minute. Now, you're thinking, and I know because I'm thinking it too, how do we not know? How is it that even the first 500 years of its existence, let's say, from 1404, it was written at the earliest, to 1912 when Wilfred Voynich purchased it. Since 1912, with all the advancements in technology and everything we've had, how do we still not know? That is one of the most fascinating and, I dare say, maddening questions in all of the history realm. Why don't we know? It's not like it's been lost to time. It's there. They have it in the entirety. We are going to look at it. You could, you can go on and look at it. So the biggest question is, why in the world do we not know it? And that's what really fascinates me. But since it is essentially, well, they don't know, they're speculating that it could be some sort of code. Guess what they did? Yeah, code breakers. Very, very, very good code breakers. From World War I era, from the World War I and II era, through even up until the 1960s and 70s. Tons of code breakers have looked at it. All have failed. And here's the four biggest names that I found out for the code breakers. Number one, boom, right there, is a guy named Prescott Currier, who was a code breaker during World War II and the Korean War. After his passing, the NSA described him as, quote, a giant of cryptography. He made advancements. A lot of the characters, I believe, are based on his research in the 1970s when he did it, but he was unsuccessful in the long run. Now we turn our attention to a man by the name of William F. Friedman, who ran the research division of the Army's Signal Intelligence Service in the 1930s, and then part of its follow-up services into the 1950s. In 1952, he became the chief cryptologist for the newly formed NSA, the National Security Agency. He admitted he studied the Voynich manuscript for parts of 4 decades before finally having to admit defeat. Oh, and by the way, he wasn't the only one during those 4 decades. His wife also was a very good codebreaker in her own right, Elizabeth Smith Friedman. A little blurb on her: deciphered enemy codes during both world wars and helped to solve international smuggling cases, slow down, Zach, during the Prohibition era in the United States. Over the course of her career, she worked for the U.S. Treasury, the Coast Guard, the Navy, the Army, and the International Monetary Fund. And rightfully so, she has been called America's first female cryptanalyst. Cryptanalyst. First female cryptanalyst is how it would be pronounced, Zach. But she worked alongside of it with her husband, failed as well. And then in comes John Tiltman, a British Army officer who worked in intelligence, often at or with the government code and cipher schools starting in the 1920s. He met up with the Friedmans in the 1950s and continued to work on the manuscript. To no avail. To no avail. That, we're talking just those 4 right there. If you're into, cryptography and things like that, they are the upper echelon. They are on the Mount Rushmore, or, standing right at the foot of Mount Rushmore for code breakers. The fact they spent 4 decades and worked together, and they don't even have half of the alphabet. What is this thing? That is the genuine question. What is this thing? So, because it's completely indecipherable, essentially the only way they have broken it down is based on the pictures with illustration. And they even put a little breakdown on it. And I shall read you this. They have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different sections just based on illustrations. The biggest one is herbal. 126 pages of it are herbal, talking about flowers, plants, whatnot. 17 pages, astronomical, so, the zodiac and whatnot. 20 pages is I cannot remember, this is such a strange word. Balneological, which essentially is in reference to bathing and hygiene. Cosmological, 14 pages. Pharmaceutical, 16 pages. And then 25 pages of what they think are recipes. Now, there's 8 pages that they have grouped completely off to the side because they have no illustration, and with it also being in said indecipherable code, they don't know what it is. So, and also they're estimated, I did say there were some pages missing. It is estimated that about 28 pages are missing. Now you would think, hold on, take a pause. Smoky wheat. Actually makes me really want a hot dog, as these beers do. But it's just so incredible. And then with most things, if you find some sort of book or manuscript that has pages missing, if you find those pages, you're going to be able to piece together, no pun intended, but piece together the rest of the story and figure it out. What about this? Like I say, it's existed for over 600 years. And we're no closer to understanding it than when they first discovered it. That to me is just absolutely incredible. And then again, but what would the other pages be? What is this thing? Legitimately, that is the genuine question. What in the world is this thing? I really hope that one day we figure it out. Like, we've figured out some crazy stuff over the years as a human species. I don't know if we're ever going to figure this one out. It's so interesting. And speaking of interesting, we're going to take a pause. I'm going to go over to the computer, record that screen. I'm going to show you about 5-10 minutes of it. We're just going to look at the bunch of different pages because, like I say, you guys, you got to see it to believe it. So I'll see you over at my laptop in a minute, and hopefully I remember to record an outro to this and put it up afterwards. Time will tell. All right, we are over at the laptop. Hopefully you guys can hear me all right. We are on the digitized version of the Voynich manuscript, or as they call it, cipher manuscript. Let's see more information. Does it say? Yeah, here about the item. Scientific or magical text in an unidentified language in cipher, apparently based on Roman minuscule characters. If that isn't a good enough endorsement for what we're about to see, I couldn't tell you. But this is the front cover, and I'll just move over the table of contents there. You can see some of the illustrations, but we're going to take a closer look at some of them because let's just, obviously there's 213 pages that have been digitized, but let's just take a look. Like, it is actually, I think very beautifully illustrated. And these would be the sections that they would refer to, I guess, as the herbal. There's all the plants. At least they make the assumption. I'm going to see if we can get a good, and looks like maybe here's some of the missing pages, perhaps, but I want to get a good one. Okay, let's take a look over here at this one. Let's zoom in on the text. See, this is what we're talking about. That is essentially what the entirety of this manuscript is this incredibly strange text. Like, joking aside, this thing calling it over here a magical text, it could be. Who knows? Like, what in the world are these plants of. And some of the illustrations are quite amazing. Like, look at this one over here. You have all this and just a small amount of text. But again, it's a small amount of text. What in the world does it say? It's so hard to tell. And I think, because like with, I said over at the table, with most other history things, you get a sense of, a purpose to it, but there's nothing. There's just absolutely nothing. And tell me you're not incredibly fascinated by this. Like, what? And look at some of these characters, like this one here in particular. I'm not going to click on it and move it, but it's fantastic. I think there's really no other word for it. So I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to take a sip here because I brought the beer over with me, because why not? We will do that. It's just incredible. Here, let's go over to the table of contents. Thank you. And see where we are. Just let's see if we can find something really interesting that's YouTube friendly. I know there are some, like, what in the world is this? Like, look at this. Look at that. Is that not just incredible? I truly think that is incredible. And it's the entirety of it. The entirety of the document is exactly like this. 213 pages. Look at this. Like, look at this. What does it mean? We really don't know. And like I said over there, it's doubtful. Let's see if we can find some of the weird stuff. It's after 10. We should be able to find. Oh, yeah, like, look at this. What in the world? Oh, that's more plants? It looked like something different. Okay, here is. Yeah, okay. Wrap your head around that one. I got nothing. But the craziest thing is, and also the one thing I read, whoa, holy monkey, look at this. Like, even if you could read it, would you want to? God, that is a lot of text. Actually, in here, speaking of a lot of text, maybe it'll load. Maybe it won't load. We'll see in a minute. And it might not be loading, but we will vamp for a minute. I'm just so incredibly fascinated by it. I really am. Like, I don't think there's really any way not to be. Let's see if we can fix this. Get out of here. Can we go back? No, can we go? Well, who knows? Maybe the server froze. Maybe my internet's being weird. Either way, or maybe the document itself is haunted. But this is, I think, just incredibly cool. Like, we'll just look at the table of contents, even though we can't move it around. But what are you? I wish I could blow it up for this one because it's one of the fold-out ones. Hold on, I'm going to pause it. I'm going to refresh the tab and see if that helps. Nope, that was my fear. I think their server may have crashed because can no longer look at the. we are forbidden. But if that doesn't sum it up right there, but I think I gave you guys a pretty good one. I'm going to link to it down below anyway, just in case. Zach, see you back over at the table if I remember to actually do that after this, because I am the confused now. Hi, it's me again. No, Zach, don't worry. You did remember to record the outro, so don't fret. When you put this all together, you'll see this part of it. Right? Just right? What else is there to say? That was incredibly cool. One day I hope. I would really like to know the answer to what exactly the Voynich manuscript is. So we're going to wind this down, and I'm going to say thanks for joining me. I really hope you enjoyed it, because this was a cool one. It's a little bit on the shorter side. Well, not really. Yesterday was massively long because of all the football games. But, man. I mean, in all honesty, I joke about it in some comments when people are opening mystery packs of things, and I said, who doesn't love a good mystery? But in a way, I do kind of mean it, because who doesn't enjoy a good mystery, especially a history mystery? Like, this isn't something made up. This isn't an urban legend. This is a physical, tangible thing that we as a human species, after a long time, know absolutely nothing about. It kind of makes you wonder, what if one day they discover it? They crack the code or whatever, and it turns out that it turned out that it was a prank. That would be incredible. I don't know. I like I say, I hope one day we'll figure it out. I doubt we will. I would love to see it. We're going to wrap this up. I was drinking a little bit over there, as you probably heard, while we were thumbing through the document, but I wanted to come back and I wanted to sign off properly. Since this is German, we're going to butcher some German. As I am wont to do with every language, it's Prost, meine Freunde, which means cheers, my friends. So here's to you. Here's to you. Here's to weird history. Here's to the Voynich manuscript, whatever you may be. And I'm going to close it off by saying this. Well, actually, I'm going to close it off by saying thank you guys for joining me. Hope you enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of your week. And I'm going to leave you with this one parting thought. If you think about it, Apple really, really missed the boat. Because why aren't iPhone chargers simply called apple juice? Have a good night, everybody.